Okay, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. We'll continue where we left off with lesson number 21. And in lesson 21 we had started discussing the conditional sentences. Conditional sentences in Arabic, they're distinguished primarily by what word is used to introduce the condition. So we have one type of condition which is introduced by the word in. And that's a condition which is a real condition. If blank, then blank. So we can say, Insha Allahu, if God wills, then something will happen. Insha Allahu. You can say, Sallaytu. If God wills, I will pray. And even though sha'a is a past tense verb, sallaytu is a past tense verb, the meaning is future. If God wills, I will do it. Because in is always used for the future. That meaning will always be in the future. You can't have a real condition in the past, because it either is the case or it is not the case. There is nothing conditional about it. I might not know what the truth is, but there will not really be a condition involved. It will just be knowing or not knowing.
If I wanted to, if I had done it, I would not be.
If I had done it, I would not be regretting it. That is not a real condition, but that is a conditional statement where we know that the condition was not fulfilled, and therefore the result did not come about. So, for example, if I had not gone, I would not have learned. Right? That it's the meaning is conditional, but what I'm saying is not actually a condition. What I'm saying is that my not going would have resulted in my not learning, but I did go, and so I did learn. And that is introduced with another type of conditional word, lo. So the word in Arabic that introduces a condition is what influences the meaning, rather than the tense or the form of the verb itself. So now we'll move on page 3. There are some conditions which are introduced by idha. And idha generally means if. In Quranic Arabic, it means when. But in modern Arabic, it sometimes also conveys the meaning of if. So there is a conditional meaning, but it's generally used for a condition that is definite. That's the meaning in Quranic Arabic. إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحِ. When the victory of God and the help of God come. So that's إِذَا جَاءَ, that it's definitely going to come. When it comes, at that time, وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا فَسَبِّحْ. Then glorify your Lord. So إِذَا is used for a condition in Quranic Arabic, classical Arabic, that is definite. But in modern Arabic, it's often used almost synonymously with in for a pure condition. Just with a general sense of if. If this happens, then that will happen. Now, idha in this meaning will always be idha. There is a separate word which is idhan. And that word idhan is sometimes actually written like this. Idhan. So that is a separate word, it has separate meaning, it's not related to إذا. إذا is used to introduce a condition.
In Quran, it is
يوم إذن, for example, that is a separate word. That is the word إذ. So إذ is a separate word. إذن, written like this, is a separate word. And إذا is a separate word. We're dealing right now with إذا.
The definite, when it comes to definite,
For definite,
is that you're saying something?
إذا is used for something that is definitely going to take place. So it's a condition that's used for a certain occurrence. So we can say, for example, إذا طلعت الشمس, when the sun rises, فاذهب إلى المدرسة, go to the school. So إذا is being used with a condition that is certainly going to take place. We won't say إن طلعت الشمس, because the sun definitely will rise. We have certainty, we have no doubt that it will take place. But as I said, in modern Arabic often إذا is used very commonly where you would expect to use in, where there is a real doubt as to whether something will take place. Now, one form of conditional which is used in Arabic is to have a command form verb and then a mudari' majzoom after it. And what that indicates is that the second verb depends on the first verb, but there is no direct word that indicates that it is a condition. So in the sentence irham turham, and actually irham will be written without the hamza because it is hamzatul wasl. So what does irham mean? Have mercy. It's a command, it's an imperative. From rahima yarhamu, the command is irham, have mercy. Then turham is the fi'l majzoom, majhul, it's passive and it's majzoom. Turham, you will be shown mercy. It's majzoom, there is nothing before it that indicates that it has to be majzoom. Normally we said that you will have lam or lamma or lamul amr or in shartiya. There's nothing like that. Or la for nahi. There's none of those words which would make a verb majzoom. But it's majzoom here because it is sort of suspended. It's attached to the irham. Irham, and then the implied meaning is in tarham turham. If you show mercy, you will be shown mercy. So the implied sentence here is irham, show mercy, in tarham turham. If you show mercy, you will be shown mercy. But we remove that condition and the in, and we keep the answer or the result. Irham turham. So how do you know that this is related to the irham? Because if it were not related, you would expect it to be turhamu. Like any other fi'al mudari, it would be marfu. But because it's majzoom, that indicates that it's subordinate to the irham. And the meaning is show mercy so that, or in order, or if you show mercy, you will be shown mercy. So there is a conditional. If you show mercy, then you will be shown mercy.
And if it's in the next example, does it always have to come from the same root?
No, it does not have to come from the same root. So it can, for example, فَاذْكُرُونِي. This is the plural. اذْكُرُونِي. All of you remember me. And then it's أذْكُر. Kum. I will remember. Kum. You. But it can be from a different root as well. So we can say udrus tanjah. Udrus meaning study. Tanjah, you will succeed. Or you can say iqra tarqa. That is not the exact wording of a hadith, but there is a hadith with the similar meaning and similar wording that on the Day of Judgment, those who recite the Quran, they will be told, keep reading and you will keep ascending into a higher level of paradise. So that can be expressed in Arabic with the phrase iqra, read, tarqa. And if you read, or by your reading, you will ascend. Right? From yarqa, to go up. So when we have a conditional sentence, yes?
Same root of taraqi.
This, yes. Yarqa is from the same root as taraqi or irtiqa. They're from the same root. Ruqayya, the name, is from the same root as well. Now, normally when you have a conditional, there will be two sentences. Both of them might be using a past tense verb, or they might be in the mudari' tense. In some cases, the jawab, the result clause, will have a fa before it. So the shart is the condition, and then the jaza, or the jawab, that is the answer to that condition. That if that condition is fulfilled, what will happen? That's known as the jaza or the jawab. The jawab will sometimes have a fa. We saw some examples of that in the previous examples. And we'll see some more examples coming up. One place where there is a fa is if the result clause is a jumla ismiya. If it begins with a noun, then there will be a fa in the jaza. So for example, let's take a brief example. In تغفر لهم, if you forgive them, فإنك العزيز الحكيم. So if you forgive, تغفر لهم is the condition. And what is the jaza or the jawab? إنك العزيز الحكيم. If you forgive, then you are the mighty, the wise, meaning that you have the authority and the ability to forgive. And this إنك العزيز الحكيم is a jumla ismiya. So there is a fa that comes before the jawab, just to connect the shart to the jawab. That's example number 3. There's 2 other examples which are given. إن ينصركم الله فلا غالب لكم. If God helps you, فلا غالب لكم, then there will be no one to overcome you. وإن يخذلكم, and if he refrains from helping you, فمن ذا الذي ينصركم من بعده, then who is the one who will help you after him? And again, man is a noun. So man ذا الذي ينصركم is a jumla ismiya. It does have a verb, ينصركم, but that verb comes after the man. Man is the subject of the sentence. If I say, for example, man yansurukum, who will help you? Man is the mubtada, yansurukum is the khabar. So it's a jumla ismiya. And jumla ismiya can have a verb, but if it begins with a noun and that noun is the mubtada, the subject, then it's still a jumla ismiya, and it requires a fa. We have to say faman dhal ladhi yansurukum. Question? Jumla ismiya is a sentence that has a mubtada and a khabar, a noun that is a subject, and then a predicate. The predicate can be a verb. So jumla ismiya can contain a verb, or it can be, it can be anything, or it can be a noun, an adjective, for example. So a jumla ismiya might contain no verb at all, like Zaydun alimun. So Zayd is a noun, alimun is an adjective, which is a noun, and it's a jumla ismiya with no verb. The second example, in tubdu khayran aw tukhfuhu aw ta'fu an su'in, if you do any of these things, if you show what is good, aw tukhfuhu, or you hide it, aw ta'fu an su'in, or if you forgive evil, then فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ عَفُوًّا قَدِيرًا. Verily God is forgiving and powerful. إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ عَفُوًّا قَدِيرًا, that is a jumla ismiya. So one time when you will need a fa is if it's jumla ismiya. Another time is if the result is a command, an imperative form of some sort. إِن كُنْتَ جِئْتَ بِآيَةٍ فَأْتِ بِهَا. If you came with a verse, with a sign, فَأْتِ بِهَا, show it. So فَأْتِ بِهَا, show it, that is a command. إن كان هذا هو الحق من عندك فأمطر علينا حجارة. Amtir is a command. If this is the truth, amtir, send rain on us. A rain of hijara, of stones. So that's a command, and therefore there will be a fa. Also, if the conditional sentence has a result which begins with qad or sofa or seen or a negative particle, then there will need to be a fa. So for example, إن تستفتحوا فقد جاءكم الفتح. إن تتوبا إلى الله فقد صغت قلوبكما. If you repent to God, فقد صغت قلوبكما, your hearts strayed. Now another form which is used in the Quran, but which is not very common in this wording in modern Arabic, is if there is a fi'l madi which is meant to retain the meaning of fi'l madi. Normally we said that when it is a conditional, even if the verb is madi, the meaning will be future. But in some cases we want it to retain the meaning of madi, retain the meaning of the past. And in that case the fa will be used. So for example, in kuntu qultuhu faqad alimtahu. In kuntu qultuhu, that is actually past because it has kuntu. If I did say it, faqad alimtahu. You knew it. Right? So here the meaning is not if I will say it, you will know it, but speaking that it was known from the past. So قد علمته, you have known it or you did know it in the past, and the fa will be used. In this case we have a qad used. In some cases the qad will not be used, like the second example. إن كان قميصه قد من قبل فصدقت. In this case, the meaning is إن كان قميصه, if his shirt قد من قبل was ripped from the front, فصدقت, then she will tell the truth or she was telling the truth. She was telling the truth, right? So it's past tense. And if there were no fa, that would give the impression that we're using a past tense verb, but the meaning is future. Because within, normally the meaning is future. So we have that fa that tells us that no, this is not a normal sentence. The past tense is being used for the past tense meaning. إن كان قميصه قد من قبل فصدقت. Then she was telling the truth. And if there is a sentence that begins with man, man meaning whoever, can also have a conditional meaning. Right? When I say whoever goes will get a prize, that basically is a conditional, that if you go, you will get a prize, or if somebody else goes, they will get a prize. So implicitly there's a condition there. So that word man, in the sense of whoever, that also can be used with a conditional sense. When it's used with a conditional, then the same rules will apply. Sometimes the answer will have fa, sometimes it will not. And in general, the verb will be madi, and the negative form will be with lam. So we can look at a few examples from the Quran. من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر, whoever believes in God and the last day, وعمل صالحا, and does good, فلهم أجرهم عند ربهم. As a result, if they fulfill that condition, they will get a ajr, a reward from their Lord. من كسب سيئة وأحاطت به خطيئته, whoever earns evil and his sin, ahatat means to surround, basically to overcome or to surround. فَأُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ النَّارِ, they are the people of the fire. مَنْ يَشْفَعْ شَفَاعَةً حَسَنَةً يَكُنْ لَهُ نَصِيبٌ. يَكُنْ is conditional. So مَنْ يَشْفَعْ يَكُنْ لَهُ نَصِيبٌ. See how that works? Whoever intercedes, man yashfa, whoever intercedes, yakun lahu nasib. The condition is to intercedes, and the result is that he will have a portion of it. And then the verse continues, man yashfa shafa'atan sayyi'atan yakun lahu kiflum minha. Or if you take a look at this sentence, مَن يَعْمَلْ سُوءًا, whoever does evil, يَعْمَلْ سُوءًا is the condition, يُجْزَ بِهَا, this is the jaza. he will get the recompense of it. Yujza is majzoom. And the original verb is yujza. And then when it's majzoom, we drop the question.
Touching part of the result clause with one the same.
Basically the same, yes. Same rules will apply. And finally, we have impossible conditions, or conditions which are contrafactual, which are not the case. And those are introduced by lo. In many cases, the jawab here will have la. And it will be introduced by la. لولا علي لهلك عمر. That's actually a separate word which is discussed in books of grammar, lo la, which is lo plus la. But you can think of it as lo if and then la. Lawla aliyun, if not for Ali, lahalaka Umar. Then Umar would have been destroyed. In the next sentence, you have to rearrange it. So, waddu law takfuruna kama kafaru. Right, what that is saying in meaning is law takfuruna kama kafaru waddu. The meaning is that if you were to disbelieve like they disbelieved, wadduhu, they would like that. And this sentence also in grammar is explained in a different way, that the law here is for a masdar. They would like it for you to do so. But you can think of it still as a conditional. The same basic conditional meaning applies. The next two examples, though, are very clear. لو أن أنزل علينا الكتاب, if أنزل علينا الكتاب, if we had the book revealed to us, لكنا أهدى منهم, we would be أهدى منهم, more rightly guided than they. But we did not get the book, and so we are not more rightly guided. Or the next one, لو هدانا الله لهديناكم. If God had guided us, we would have guided you. But God did not guide us, so we did not guide you. So this time, the condition is not being met, and therefore the result is also not being met. And notice that you will see لهديناكم, that jaza here is being prefixed with la. So just one note before we conclude. In and man are the ones that will give jazm. Idha will not give jazm, lo will not give jazm. And now let's take a look at the notes for lesson 22. So here we have some more verb patterns that we're going to be discussing, and this is going to actually be somewhat similar to the same patterns that we've discussed before. So it's not very difficult, inshallah. We'll begin with the normal form for the majhul. Right? Majhul, if you remember, is the passive form of the verb. So qatala, he killed. Qutila, he was killed. Kataba, he wrote. Kutiba, it was written. And just as we have that form for the past, we can have it for the mudari' or the imperfect. There's two steps to make the majhul. First, go to the second last letter of the verb. So let me write down, for example, yansuru. I'll go to the second last letter, which is the sad, and I'll give it a fatha. In some cases, it might have a fatha already, like yaftahu. That's no change needed. In some cases, it will have a dhamma, like yansuru, and I'll change the dhamma to a fatha. In some cases, it may have a kasra, like yadribu, and then I will change it to a fatha. So I'll make the second last letter maftuh, and then I'll go to the harf al-mudara'a and I'll give it a dhamma. Yunsaru. And that's it. And that will apply to this, the verbs that we've covered until now, and all other verbs that we're going to learn in the future. All other forms and patterns, they will follow the same rule. So yunsaru, yunsarane, look at the chart. Yunsaruna, tunsaru, tunsarane, yunsarna, tunsaru, tunsarane, tunsaruna, tunsarina, tunsarane, tunsarna, unsaru, nunsaru. Line number 3 in the masculine plural should be tunsaruna. Second person masculine plural. So that's very simple. Any questions on that? Just those two changes and the same conjugation pattern that we've covered from before. Now, there are certain special rules that we have to cover. These also are not actually very difficult, but you just have to look at them once and memorize it so you know how to apply them properly. If you remember, there were certain verbs that we said that the first letter is dropped in the mudari'. Right? So we have, for example, the word wajada. When we bring it to the mudari', we don't say yawjidu. We say yajidu. Right? Or, for example, walada or waritha, you'd expect us to say yawrithu, but instead we say yarithu. So what happens when it becomes majhul? Well, we'll bring that missing letter back. So we won't just say yujadu, we'll say yujadu. We won't say yurathu, we'll say yurathu. So we'll bring the missing letter back. Second last letter gets a fatha. The first letter gets a dhamma. So we'll say yujadu, yuladu, yurathu, and so on. If there is a verb which is ajwaf, meaning it has a weak letter in the middle, then the way that we will deal with that is that that weak letter will be converted into an alif. So we have, for example, yaqulu. If it's a waw, yabi'u. If it's a ya, and in some cases it might already be an alif, like yanalu, right, to attain, to reach. So if it's not an alif, we'll convert it to an alif. We'll say, and we'll make a dhamma for the first letter, yuqalu, to be said, yuba'u, to be sold, yunalu, to be attained, or yukhafu, to be feared. So if it's ajwaf, then the middle letter will always be a fatha. The middle letter will be an alif, and it will be preceded by a fatha. If there is a fi'l naqis, then the weak letter at the end of the verb, it will be written as alif maqsura. Do you remember what alif maqsura is? Like in Musa and Isa. So for example, the word yarmi, we'll give it a dhamma and it will become yurma. The word yanha, which already has an alif maqsura, the only change is that the first letter will get a dhamma, yunha. And then yad'u will change to yud'a. So there will be an alif maqsura for the majhul form. And if there is a fi'l muda'af, a verb with a doubled letter, then what will happen is the first letter will get a dhamma, and then the fatha will come on the letter before the doubled letter. So we have, for example, yamuddu. When you want to make it majhul, we'll say yumaddu. That's for those forms where there is idgham, right, where the double letter is combined. If there's no idgham, then it's just a regular verb. So we'll say yumaddu, yumaddani, yumadduna, tumaddu, tumaddani, yumdadna, yumdadna. And for any of these to know how it is in majzoom or in the mansub, you can go back to the same pattern. So for the muda'af, it'll be just like it was when we studied the fi'l muda'af. For mithal, ajwaf, naqis, the same rules will apply. Any questions? So these are just a few extra things to keep in mind, but the basic rule is the same as we've already covered. The passive will simply have a different meaning, and the basic rules of how to conjugate it are the same as we've covered before. So we'll look at a few examples. Now, one usage for the passive is something that can be done or should be done. We use that in English as well, right? So we say, for example, shorts are not worn in the masjid. Right? What that means is that they should not be worn. It's not appropriate. That is not done, meaning that should not be done. Right? So that usage is common in Arabic. أَجْعَلْنَا مِن دُونِ الرَّحْمَنِ آلِهَةً يُعْبَدُونَ. Did we make, in place of God, in place of the most merciful, gods, يُعْبَدُونَ, to be worshipped? Or لَا يُقَالُ ذَلِكَ, that is not said, meaning that it is not to be said, should not be said. So let's look at a few examples. إِلَيْهِ يُرْجَعُ الْأَمْرُ كُلُّهُ. All affairs are returned to him. لَا تَظْلِمُونَ, you will not oppress. وَلَا تُظْلَمُونَ, and you will not be oppressed. So تَظْلِمُونَ is the active form, and تُظْلَمُونَ is the passive form. قُلْ لَا تُسْأَلُونَ عَمَّا أَجْرَمْنَا. Say, you will not be asked. لَا تُسْأَلُونَ, you will not be questioned. وَلَا نُسْأَلُ, and we will not be asked عَمَّا تَعْمَلُونَ, about what you do. Next, وَيَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ لَا يُنْصَرُونَ. On the Day of Judgment, they will not be given assistance. They will not be helped. أَن يُعْرَفْنَا, for them to be known. This is feminine plural. So, يَعْرِفْنَا, they know. يُعْرَفْنَا, for them to be known. أَن يُعْرَفْنَا. Do you know what form that is? So, يُعْرَفُ, يُعْرَفَانِ, يُعْرَفُونَ, and then تُعْرَفُ, تُعْرَفَانِ, يُعْرَفْنَا, feminine plural, third person. In the Quran, of course, in Surah Tawheed, we have لَمْ يَلِدْ, he did not have a child. وَلَمْ يُولَدْ, and he was not born to somebody else. So he did not beget, and he was not begotten. He did not have a child, and he was not the child. And then finally, we'll look at Nun al-Ta'kid. This is not something that is very commonly used, certainly not in most Arabic prose, but it's commonly used in emotional types of speech, because nun al-ta'kid is used for emphasis. And so in poetry, in prayers, in the Quran, the nun al-ta'kid will be found. But you're not going to see it, for example, in a newspaper article or in normal academic writing, for example. And nun al-ta'kid is used to give emphasis, oftentimes with a command, like definitely do it, or with an oath, like by God, I will certainly do this. Those are the times when it's most commonly used. And the way that it is done is that there is a noon mushaddada, a noon with a shadda, that is added to the end of the verb. And when that noon mushaddada is added, the verb does not change in its i'rab. So normally we have a mansub or a majzoom or a marfu' verb. With noon al-ta'kid, there's only one form, and it resembles the mansub form. So the last letter of the verb will have a fatha. If there is a noon that is added, the noon will be dropped. The noon that is in the marfu' case, that will be dropped, and we'll add a noon with a shadda. Normally the noon with the shadda has a fatha, but if it comes after an alif, then it will have a kasra, just to balance the vowel sounds out. So take a look at the chart. يفعلن, يفعلان. If you want, you can add in a kasra to make it clear that that is a kasra. يفعلن. Now, notice that with يفعلن, what did we do to the waw? We dropped it because it was يفعلوا, and then we added a noon. The noon starts with a sukoon, the waw is a sukoon, so we have to drop the waw. And anytime there is that long vowel, we'll have to drop it. So تفعلن, تفعلان, يفعلنان. With the feminine plural, we'll add an alif to separate the two noons. تفعلن, تفعلان, تفعلن. Again, تفعلن, it was تفعلوا, but we dropped the waw. Notice that we dropped the waw. We're going to drop the ya in the future, but we don't drop the alif. So in all of the dual forms, there is an alif followed by a sakin noon. And that's the exception to the rule. Right? Even though alif is sakin, the noon is sakin, but we say تفعلان, تفعلن. And then if you come down to the second person feminine, تفعلن. This used to be تفعلي, but we dropped the ya. And then تفعلان, تفعلنان, أفعلن, نفعلن. And so in all cases there is a suffix which is added to the verb, and when there is a long vowel we will drop the waw or the ya, but not the alif. The alif will remain. So we can look at a few examples from the Quran. One is the meaning to indicate certainty or absolute determination. لَأُكَفِّرَنَّ عَنْهُمْ سَيِّئَاتِهِمْ. أُكَفِّرَنَّ, I will most certainly hide their evils. لَأُدْخِلَنَّهُمْ جَنَّاتٍ, I will most certainly make them enter paradise. فَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا, most certainly God will know. الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا, the ones who are true. وَلَيَحْمِلُنَّ أَثْقَالَهُمْ, and most certainly يَحْمِلُنَّ, they will carry, from hamala, to carry. Most certainly they will carry their burdens. وَأَثْقَالًا مَعَ أَثْقَالِهِمْ, and burdens along with their own burdens. وَلَيُسْأَلُنَّ, and most certainly they will be asked. Next one. وَلَيَقُولَنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, and most certainly the ones who disbelieved, they will say. Next. لَإِنْ جَاءَهُمْ نَذِيرٌ لَيَكُونُنَّ أَهْدَى مِنْ إِحْدَى الْأُمَمِ, and if a warner came to them, then they will be more rightly guided than another people or community. Now, the same noon at-ta'keed can come with a negative sentence, a sentence which is preceded by la. That can be la nahi, which is a negative command. So la yaghurrannaka taqallubul ladhina kafaru, that's a command. Don't let it. Gharra yaghurru is to mislead. Ghurur is being misled. So la yaghurrannaka, don't let those who are disbelieving, don't let their taqallub, their moving about in the land, fool you. Most certainly don't let it fool you. And it can also come with a negative sentence that is not affirmative. So, for example, Wallahi la af'alanna, most certainly I will not do it. That's not a command, but it's a negative sentence. So that's noon at-ta'keed, and that's known as noon at-ta'keed al-thaqila. So yeah, al-thaqila. There is also a noon at-ta'keed al-khafifa, a lighter noon at-ta'keed. Thaqila is the heavy noon at-ta'keed. So لَأَفْعَلَنَّ with the shadda. It's thaqila because it has a shadda. But then there's a form of noon at-ta'keed that does not have a shadda, and that's known as khafifa, the light one. A little bit less enthusiastic, a little bit less excited. So you can say that 2 cups of caffeine is noon at-ta'keed al-thaqila, 1 cup of caffeine is noon at-ta'keed al-khafifa. And this one is a noon with a sukoon. Because it has a sukoon, it's not used in all forms. So the dual forms, like for example, yaktubanne, normally we would have to drop the alif, right? But in Arabic there is an exception made because an alif is easy to pronounce. If there is a shadda after it, then we just stretch the alif a little bit and we can pronounce it. In Surah Fatiha, you're familiar, وَلَضَّالِّينَ. So it's stretched a little bit and it's pronounceable. So the Arabs do not consider that hard to pronounce. And that's very common in Nun at-Ta'keed al-Thaqila, or not very common, but it's in the dual forms, all of the dual forms. Right? Yaktubanne. But Nun at-Ta'keed al-Khafifa does not have that shadda. So what's the solution? Don't even use it for the dual forms. And same thing for the feminine plurals. Because we already have a noon, yaktubna for example. So then we cannot add an alif when the noon is the noon of ta'keed will be sakin. So it's not used for the feminine plural, it's not used for the dual forms. But it's used for all of the singular forms, and it's used for the masculine plurals, and it's used for the first person plural. And that's very simply yaf'alan, plural yaf'alun, feminine singular taf'alan, second person masculine taf'alan and taf'alun. Taf'alun is plural. Then second person feminine singular taf'alin, that's used. And the first person, both forms are used, af'alan, naf'alan. And that is also found in a few examples in the Quran, but it's much less common than the Nun Ta'kid al-Thaqila. And there are a few other rules about how to pronounce it and how to write it, which we won't get into because it's not very common. Just be aware that there is Nun Ta'kid al-Khafifa, which does not have a shadda as well. So that concludes lesson 21 and 22, and that also concludes our session for the year. Inshallah, thank you for your participation and your attention, and inshallah we will continue next year. Please do take the time over the summer to review, and inshallah once you review you'll see that some of the things that seem difficult at the beginning, they're actually not more difficult, much easier than it seemed